So I'm Leila. I'm 48 and I'm Chief Production Officer at Accenture Song Production Studios. And I absolutely love my job. Um, and outside of that, I love cold water swimming and I love spending time with my family and friends. And I love the countryside. So those are the things that I'm always trying to do is get in the water, get in the countryside with my family and friends.
We are both what you'd class as neurodivergent, and I was trying to find other women online that actually kind of talk about their experience. And I was fortunate enough to come across you, Leila.
Well, thank
So
you.
thank you for joining us today.
No, thanks for that. And I've been really excited to talk to you as well. And I appreciate you asking me on. And yeah, it's quite hard to find um, neurodivergent women that
Yeah.
one can identify with in our business and beyond our business, and in our age group as well. So I yeah, I've been on a little search actually looking for people, and it's why I'm kind of freely talking about my experiences, in the hope that I can help other people freely talk about their experiences and get the support that they need.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's such a powerful thing that you're doing. Like I said, it was really difficult to kind of come across people that are openly, and I certainly felt like I wasn't able to be open throughout certainly my earlier kind of career. And it's probably only just more recently that I, even now, still question whether I share or disclose, like, kind of depending on who I'm with. So your diagnosis with autism actually came really late in life. So my diagnosis with dyslexia was really early, like kind of in life. So I've kind of lived with that through pretty much all of my life. But talk to me about that journey.
The journey to diagnosis, do you mean?
Yeah. And because you talk about it being like really powerful and stuff like that, but it's
Um,
taken you what to your mid to late 40s to
yeah,
even get that diagnosis.
yeah, I know it's crazy. And I was talking to someone in my neurodiverse peer group at work who's maybe like 25, and we were sharing stories around being autistic in the workplace. And there were a few things that she said that kind of horrified me, but
Mm.
her honesty is allowing me to try and find supports for her within our workplace. But it horrified me because I don't want her to have to feel exhausted and rinsed inside, to use her words,
Mm.
by the workplace. And I realized also while she was saying it that I've spent nearly 30 years feeling exhausted and rinsed by the workplace and not knowing why I find the workplace more challenging than the next person. Um, so it was very interesting. She was talking about the environment in the office. So the environment in the
Right.
office is giving us massive sensory overload as neurodivergent people, particularly with regards light and noise. And she only goes into the
Mm.
office one day a week. And she said, I just know, Leila, she said that, it's just one day. And I know that at the end of that day, I'm going to feel absolutely exhausted and completely rinsed and frazzled inside. And I was like,
Mm.
I've done that for 30 years. No wonder I have had challenges. But I feel really strongly that this wonderful, wonderful young woman who has so much value to add to the business is being asked to work in conditions that do that to her. And we all are. All of us who are neurodivergent, to some degree, are being asked to work in conditions that make us ill. So it's very, very interesting. So to come back to your actual question around my diagnosis, I had no idea why I was challenged so much. I had no idea my whole life why I had these specific challenges. And to a certain extent, they've made me stronger. But what led me to finding out was I met my partner, and he has children, one of which is diagnosed as autistic. And so, taking my responsibilities as the responsible adult in these two children's lives,
Yeah.
I decided I would read up on autism. I had a little bit of understanding, but not much at all. And so I read a book, and I was like, this is fascinating. And I read another book, and I started researching online, and I found I was really, really, really interested in the subject. And I just kept reading and reading and reading. And it wasn't massively helping me with regards being a stepmom to my partner's children.
Yeah.
I was just finding it interesting. And then I met my partner's son, and he is just one of the best people I've ever met in my life. I just absolutely adore him, and felt that I identified with some of the challenges that he has had as a child. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But I also started to recognize some of the things that he was finding challenging and some of the things that I was reading about. At the same time, one of my best friends, who I've been friends with for years and years, was going through a diagnosis of autism for her daughter, who was having challenges in school and outside of school. And so my very, very good friend was reading a lot as well. And I'd started to recognize some of the things that I was reading and thinking, this sounds like me. One of the things is you often read about autistic people that they don't like eye contact. And the thought in my head whenever I read that is, well, nobody likes eye contact. I find it physically painful.
It's true.
Like, nobody likes it. I don't like it. And then I suddenly thought, oh, well, hang on. If I don't like it, am I autistic? And at that point, I started really recognizing things. And my friend Esme said to me, do you think you might be autistic, Leila? And I was like, actually, I do. Can you tell me why you're asking that question? And she listed off of things that she recognized in me when she was reading about autism for her daughter, because autism presents really differently in males and females. So I'm reading about a male, reading about a female, and we would come together and we would share this information. And, she listed off all of these things, and I kind of just thought, yeah. And at that point, I'd kind of started identifying as an autistic person because so much of it made sense to me. And I was in the enormously privileged position to be working for Accenture Song, and I had really good healthcare. And I just went to them and I said, could you give me a diagnosis of autism? And they did within 6 weeks, which was pretty incredible.
A lot of the reading that I do that's even around like kind of neurodiversity and like kind of for anything from ADHD to, like you say, autism to dyslexia to dyspraxia, is all based on the traits that you see typically in boys or in men. And so when you're kind of reading some of it, you're like, well, I don't necessarily do that, and I might not have those kind of difficulties, but they do show up really differently in girls and women.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The criterias for diagnosis are problematic, I think. And look, I'm not an expert, I'm just an autistic person. But particularly for myself, what I recognize is my insanely brilliant ability to mask my autistic symptoms. And that's very prevalent in females. And once you have your mask, it feels like your personality, right? And I've been masking my entire life. So actually, when you read some of the criteria for being autistic, do you have problems communicating or being social? Well, no, I don't, because I've learned how to do those things, and I've learned them so well. And they are one of my special interests as an autistic person that no, I don't. I can go anywhere and socialize anywhere. That doesn't mean I'm not autistic. So it is quite problematic. There's something called hyperlexia in neurodiverse individuals, which is a really deep understanding of communications and words and parlance and how people use words, and a real special interest in it. And I definitely have that. That's something that kind of underpins my relationship with my father is, what does a word mean? Why are we using it in that context? What's a new word that we don't know? How can we use it? A friend of mine who's also autistic, she was diagnosed when her children were diagnosed. She was about 40 at the time. She talks about it as being fluent in 2 languages. So when you speak more than one language, you have your first language and you have your second language. And
Yeah.
she speaks about how we are fluent in neurotypical, but it is our second language. So when we become tired or overwhelmed or a bit stressed, the second language slips a bit and things become more difficult. And I think that is why, that sort of leads me to why I believe women aren't diagnosed until later in life. Things become more difficult as you get older, particularly if you're going through perimenopause or menopause and you're not sleeping and you're tired and you've got children that you're looking after, elder parents that you're looking after. You're tired and the mask is slipping. And so you are finding the neurotypical world more challenging. I don't know where this strength has come from, because I've not always been as outspoken or as strong as I am now. But I do feel that I want to provide a workplace where you can be autistic, you can be dyslexic, and you can talk about it, and you can ask for accommodations, and it's cool, and it's okay, and it doesn't need to be a big deal. Or you can have menopause, or you can be a single parent. All of these things should be okay.
I suppose it's that thing, isn't it, of like the workplace no longer can just be one size fits all. Like, as people, as human beings, have different needs and different requirements, and for workplaces to be effective and for everybody to thrive, including businesses as well, gone are the days of, well, if you can't fit in like it in the traditional kind of sense, whether it is working these typical hours, whether it's coming to the studio or to the office, or whether it's any of these things, well, it's now about the world is hopefully starting to shift for a more positive kind of experience for people, in that it isn't one size fits all.
No, and I think one of the interesting things for me is, right, it's the right thing for us to do to be having this conversation, okay? And it's the right thing for me to do as a leader and a manager of people, to be as inclusive as possible and to allow people to work in flexible ways. But equally, the business outcomes are off the charts. So they're off the charts if you have inclusivity in your workplace. Like, you're something like 60-70% more likely to grow your business if you have inclusivity at its heart. And there, you just need to Google it. There's stats everywhere. Accenture itself has done studies that show that the superiority of business outcomes in an inclusive business. McKinsey have done the same. Harvard University have done deep research and scientific study into this. It's like, the bottom line is better if you are inclusive, but it's also the right thing to do, and it allows individuals to have a happier and more psychologically safe work environment. It's an absolute no-brainer that we should be having this discussion, and that it should be okay for us to have this discussion.
But talking about stats, I think in one of your posts that I kind of came across, I think you referred to teams with neurodivergence are are 30% more productive, yet only 43% of respondents disclose their neurodiversity. What kind of, being a leader and obviously your own diagnosis, but also managing other people and representing, like, what do you think are some of the barriers that people experience in terms of when it comes to the, like, being comfortable with disclosing?
I think, gosh, I mean, I think there's so many barriers there. And I actually feel really privileged to have the ability to talk about this, because not a lot of neurodivergent people do have that ability. And like, so I have at work a neurodiverse peer group, and it is the best place I've ever been. It's twice a month, and all the neurodivergent people who want to come from Accenture globally, any level, any background, just there meeting with each other to talk. It is the most non-judgmental, psychologically safe, supportive environment I've ever been in, and it's fantastic. So I get access to so many neurodivergent people from so many backgrounds who are free to talk with people that understand them. But what I hear a lot from them, with their cameras off, not speaking, but typing, is that they're introvert, and it is too challenging to do what I'm doing here today with you. It's too challenging for them to switch their camera on. And so that silences some people. I hear people, because I do speak about this, people come to me, and I have one-to-ones with a lot of neurodivergent people.
Yeah.
And there's too many stories of bullying, right? Because of the way that some neurodivergent people communicate. And so that silences them as well. And, you know, just even amongst my friends, there is a huge lack of understanding as to what neurodivergency is. And even me, as an autistic person, feels like I have a very long way to go to understand it.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't understand it 6 years ago. I didn't understand it. I held all the same stereotypical views about neurodivergency as the next uneducated person. So there's a massive lack of education.
I came across something where they described kind of being neurodivergent, particularly dyslexic, as having quite a spiky personality profile. So these things that you're actually really good at, like kind of probably better than a neurotypical person is, but actually there are these other things that you find really difficult, like kind of, and so it's about living, kind of almost living in this world of extremes. And I know that when we spoke before, I said actually earlier on in my career, there was lots of trying to hide and figure out, like having this toolkit to like kind of navigate, how do I counteract like kind of some of the things that I'm not very good at. And certainly as I got more senior, I had the privilege of being able to go, well, I actually know myself quite well. I know that I'm really good at some stuff, and I know that I just really struggle. It doesn't mean I won't do them. It just means that I know that takes a huge amount of like mental capacity for me to focus on that, to kind of get, and it's not, with dyslexia, it's not just kind of spellings and stuff like that as well. There's a whole host of things. But I know that when I got to the point where I could build my own team, I kind of purposely built that in a very diverse way, because I needed people that were very different to me. I needed to counteract like kind of some of that. And that almost being a privilege that came with like time and seniority that I didn't have earlier on in my career.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting that you did that. What a great way to build a team. And I I think there is a privilege that comes with our age and that comes with our seniority, where you can affect changes. But I feel really sad for your younger self who couldn't speak out, and I feel sad for this girl that I was talking about the other day who doesn't have the workplace accommodations that she needs when she comes in to the office. And I think we have to take responsibility, and we have to start giving those younger people the environment, and understanding and support to ask for accommodations, like to make it okay. And I did a reverse mentoring at work where I talked to some very senior people about what it was like to be neurodivergent in the workplace. And all of them asked me the same thing. What can I do? What can I do to support? And they were very specifically asking me about autistic people. What can I do? And I said, look, the old adage, you've met one autistic person and you've met one autistic person, is true. That I would give them, and did give them, the same advice that I would give anyone who is a leader. And that is, listen, show your vulnerability. As soon as you show your vulnerability to those who are more junior than you, it allows them to speak up. But if you never ever show any vulnerability, or that you have any challenge in your life, why on earth would anyone speak up or think that you might understand? There's so many things in any day that will scare the shit out of me. And I will do them, Amy. I will bite off a massive chunk of it and I will just do it anyway. And I will get to the end of every day and I'll go, oh my God, I did all these things that at the beginning of the day seemed utterly impossible. And I just do that over and over and over again. Like, this isn't easy for me, but I want to do it and it is important. And so I am doing it. And I don't know where that steely core comes from, but I suspect that there is that part of me that just wants to prove everyone wrong. I can do it. I can do this, and I will work harder than everyone else. I don't know.
Maybe it's that kind of, just hearing you speak, it's like that grit and determination, isn't it? Like, yeah. And maybe that is something that as I kind of research more around neurodiversity, but also kind of women in the workplace and gender, kind of the gender divide or gender issues, I think the thing that kind of comes up as quite a common thing is that emphasis of like having to work hard, because actually as neurodivergent people, we do have to work hard, like kind of like you said even before, like it's like operating with a second language, so constantly having to. And for me, like you were saying about tenacity of, I know there's certain things that I can't do that other people can do very simply. Like I've worked out ways to get through life, like by doing it in other ways, like kind of I've just had to work it out. So figured out lots of different toolkits that I have. And maybe it is that thing, like it is about grit and determination, and maybe it shouldn't be, but I think that's one advantage that maybe we can hold down to. Neurodiversity or being neurodivergent, that actually is a positive and it's not necessarily a negative kind of trait that comes with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's good and bad with everything. There are some, some of the challenges that I feel, and I'll go really vulnerable here, have made me ill. I have an underlying health condition, and the latest research shows that, stress can cause certain underlying health conditions.
Yeah.
And the stress that one feels as an autistic person every day, just from lights and sounds,
Yeah.
environments and ways of communicating then have a knock-on effect on the body. And that's not good. That's not good. But equally, I mean, I'm incredibly empathetic. I can understand people really well because I can read between the lines of how they're feeling and what they're thinking and what they need. I see patterns all the time. So I think, there's good and bad with all of it. And you're very kind, Amy, for inviting me on and saying all these lovely things about me. Thank you. It makes me feel quite confident. I really appreciate it. But equally, there's so many things that I've got wrong, and so many things that I feel that I haven't achieved in my career and would have liked to. But equally, what I always try and come back to is, okay, what do I think went wrong there? And how can I learn from it? And how can I be self-aware as to what was my part in that, rather than going, oh, well, that person did that and that person did that, and so it didn't work out and it's all their fault. Like, what was my part in it? How could I have behaved differently, acted differently, made different choices? So that's one thing that's really helped me progress.
Are you empathetic to yourself?
Yeah, so such a good question. I'm getting better. I'm getting better at it. And I set myself an exercise 2 years ago. And it's really surprised me how hard it's been. So I read a lot about, people always say you wouldn't talk to your best friend in that way. So why are you talking to yourself in that way? Why are you getting up in the morning and going, oh, your hair looks awful?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe you said that to Sam last night. What an idiot. Like, I would never say that to you. So therefore, I want to stop saying it to myself. And this was the exercise. This was like, we're going to cut short that imposter, that person who is negative talking inside your brain. And my word, it's really hard. And you have to make a really strong and concerted effort, to the point where I'm like, okay, Leila, no. And I genuinely have to talk to myself, and I stop myself from saying things and I reframe them. I'm like, no, I'm not an anxious person. I sometimes have challenges with anxiety, right? Let's reframe that to sound a little bit more positive. And if I find myself going, oh, you were such an idiot, I can't believe you said that last night, I stop myself and I go, no, I named my negative talker.
Did you? That's a good shout.
Yeah. So some people give their imposter a kind of negative name, like moaning Mona or terrible Tina.
Yeah.
But I called mine Careful Claire, because that imposter is there to double check that I'm getting it right. It's like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't say it like that. Maybe you shouldn't have said that in the meeting, and maybe next time you've got to get it better. Like, that person, that Careful Claire, is there to try and protect me. But she gets a little bit hypervigilant and a bit inappropriate.
Yes.
I say to her, I'm like, Careful Claire, thanks for caring, but it's inappropriate that you should be this vigilant at this time.
Then might not work now and might not work in the future. So it's also okay to recognize that those boundaries are going to change. Like, we don't stay the same.
That's really interesting, actually, that you should say that, because that's definitely true for me. And I've always tried to organize everything. I mean, look at my books, for God's sake. Like, everything has to be organized.
I love them.
Thanks, mate. It helps me navigate the chaotic world, because I see the world as chaos as an autistic person. But I don't necessarily have the time or the energy to organize everything anymore. So I need to figure that part out, actually. I need to figure that part out, because that's not working for me anymore. I need something new to slot into place. And at the moment I'm kind of working on the boundaries of when I rest and what environments I work in. I've got my noise cancelling headphones that I got for Christmas from my partner, and they are a game changer for cancelling out noise.
Are they? There's one thing that you found that...
Oh my God! I mean, dream. Absolute dream. Can't believe it. Because someone suggested them, and I was kind of thinking, a pair of headphones, that's not really gonna, move the dial. And then I put them on and I think, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm setting up a neurodiverse support group.
Amazing.
I've told you about the one that I have at work and how wonderful it is and how much we all get out of it. And I want to be able to provide that for people outside of Accenture business. And so we're going to start small. I have a name, it's Ad&D, so Ad for advertising and ND for neurodiversity. And hopefully people will notice there's a little play on ADHD there, and I'll certainly keep you up to date on it. To say that
definitely
what you're doing with Uplift Her is really inspirational for me and has given me lots of ideas. So thank you for doing what you do as well. It's absolutely brilliant, and as you've said, it's somewhat outside your comfort zone as well, but it doesn't look like it. You seem to sort of sail through it with elegance.
It definitely is outside my comfort zone. But no, I appreciate kind of you saying, and I'm really excited to see where you go and take this, and ideally be part of it as well, particularly as you set up something outside of Accenture Song and kind of for the broader community. I'm really excited to see what happens.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.